Krishna 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 Hare Krishna 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Surabhyay Namaha
Om Surabhyay Namaha.
Om Surabhyay Namaha
Om Surabhyay Namaha.
Om Surabhyay Namaha
Om Surabhyay Namaha.
Mukam karoti vachanam pangum langayate girim Yat kripatamaham vande Sri Gurum Dinataranam Yat kripatamaham vande Sri Gurum Dinataranam Hare Krishna. Welcome to our morning Bhagavatam class. We continue reading from Canto number 4, chapter 20. Which is entitled Lord Vishnu's Appearance in the Sacrificial Arena. Text number?
14.
14.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Marker was at the wrong place. 14. Oh, no, it's okay. Shreyaha Praja Palanam Eva Rajno Yat Samparaye Sukritat Shastham Amsham Hartha Nyatha Rita Punyaha Prajanam Arakshita Kara Haro Agham Ati Shreya Prajapalanam Eva Rajno Yat Samparaye Sukritat Shastamam Sham Harta Nyatha Rita Punya Prajanam Arakshita Kara Haro Nam Ati Shreya Prajapalanam Eva Rajno Yat Samparaye Sukritat Shastamam Sham Harta Nyatha Rita Punya Prajanam Arakshita Karaharugnam Ati Shreya Prajapalanam Eva Rajno Yat Samparaye Sukritat Shastamam Sham
षष्टमंशम्
Hartanyatha rita punya prajanam
तथान्यथार्थ पुण्यं प्रजानाम्
Arakshita karaharognam ati.
अरक्षिता करहारोघमति श्रेयः प्रजापालनमेव रज्नो
Shreya prajapalanam eva rajno
यत्सम्पराये सुकृतत्संस्थं मंसम्
Yatsam paraye sukritat sham
हर्तन् यथारितं पुण्यः प्रजानाम्
Hartanyatha rita punya prajanam
रक्षिता करहरो अघमति
Arakshita karaharognam ati.
श्रेयः प्रजापालनमेव राज्ञो
Shreya prajapalanam eva rajno
यत्सम्पराये सुकृता षष्टमंशम्
Yatsam paraye sukritat sham
तान्यथार्थ पुण्यः प्रजानाम्
Hartanyata rita punya prajanam
आरक्षित करहारो घमति
Arakshita karaharognam ati. One more.
प्रजापालनम् एव रज्नो
Shreya prajapalanam eva rajno
यत्सम्पराये सुकृतत्सनम् अश्रम् यत्सम्पराये सुकृता षष्टमंशम् हरतनत्याहरत पुण्यप्रधनम्
Hartanyata rita punya prajanam
रक्षिता करहरो ब्रह्मति
Arakshita karaharognam ati. Shreyaha auspicious
auspicious
prajapalanam
prajapalanam
ruling over the general mass of people.
ruling over the general mass of people
Eva
eva
certainly
certainly
rajnaha
rajnaha
of the king
of the king
yat
yet
because samparaye
samparaye
in the next birth
in the next birth
sukritat
sukritat
from the pious activities
from the pious activities
shastam amsham
sashtam amsam
1/6 part
1/6 part
hartha
hartha
collector
collector
anyatha
anyatha
otherwise
otherwise
rita punyah
rita punyaha
being bereft of the results
being bereft of the results
of pious activities
of pious activities
prajanam
prajanam
of the citizens
of the citizens
arakshita
arakshita
one who does not protect
one who does not protect
karaharaha
karaharaha
tax collector
tax collector
agham
agam
sin
sin
ati
ati
receives or suffers.
receives or suffers.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
To give protection to the
To give
general mass of people who are citizens of the state is the prescribed occupational duty of a king. By acting in that way, the king in his next life shares 1/6 of the result of the pious activities of the citizens. But a king or executive head of state who simply collects taxes from the citizens but does not give them proper protection as human beings, has the results of his pious activities taken away by the citizens. And in exchange for his not giving protection, he becomes liable to punishment by the impious activities of his subjects. Kindly repeat after me. To give protection.
To give protection.
To the general mass of people.
To the general mass of people.
Who are citizens of the state.
Who are citizens of the state.
Is the prescribed occupational duty.
Is the prescribed occupational duty.
For a king.
For a king.
By acting in that way.
By acting in that way.
The king in his next life.
The king in his next life.
Shares 1/6.
Shares 1/6.
Of the result of the pious activities.
Of the result of the pious activities.
Of the citizens.
Of the citizens.
But a king.
But a king.
Or executive head of state.
Or executive head of a state.
Who simply collects taxes.
Who simply collects taxes.
From the citizens.
From the citizens.
But does not give them.
But does not give them.
Proper protection.
Proper protection.
As human beings.
As human beings.
Has the results.
Has the results.
Of his own pious activities.
Of his own pious activities.
Taken away by the citizens.
Taken away by the citizens.
And in exchange.
And in exchange.
For his not giving protection.
For his not giving protection.
He becomes liable.
He becomes liable.
To punishment.
To punishment.
For the impious activities.
For the impious activities.
Of his subjects.
Of his subjects.
Hare Krishna. Purport. The question may be raised here that if everyone engaged in spiritual activities to attain salvation and became indifferent to the activities of the material world, then how could things as they are go on? And if things are to go on as they ought to, how can a head of state be indifferent to such activities? In answer to this question, the word Shreyaha, auspicious, is used here. The division of activities in society is arranged by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We'll read that again here. The division of activities in society as arranged by the Supreme Personality of Godhead was not blindly or accidentally created, as foolish people say. The Brahmana must do his duty properly, and the Kshatriya, the Vaishya, and even the Shudra must do the same. And every one of them can achieve the highest perfection of life, liberation from this material bondage. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 18:45. Sway sway karmani abhirata samsiddhim labhate naraha. By executing one's prescribed duties, one can attain the highest perfection. Lord Vishnu advised Maharaj Prithu that a king is not enjoined to give up his kingdom and the responsibility of protecting the prajas, or citizens, to instead go away to the Himalayas for liberation. he can attain liberation while executing his royal duties. The royal duty, or the duty of the head of state, is to see that the prajas, or the general mass of people, are doing their prescribed, their respective duties for spiritual salvation. A secular state does not necessitate a king or head of state who is indifferent to the activities of the prajas. In the modern state, the government has many rules and regulations for conducting the duties of the prajas, but the government neglects to see that the citizens advance in spiritual knowledge. If the government is careless in this matter, the citizens will act whimsically, without any sense of God realization or spiritual life, and thus become entangled in sinful activities. An executive head should not be callous to the welfare of the general mass of people while he simply goes on collecting taxes. The king's real duty is to see that the citizens gradually become fully Krishna conscious. Krishna conscious means completely free from all sinful activities. As soon as there is complete eradication of sinful activities in the state, then there will be no more war, pestilence, famine, or natural disturbances. This was actually prevailing during the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthira. If a king or head of the government is able to induce the citizens to become Krishna conscious, then he is worthy to rule over the mass of people. Otherwise, he has no right to levy taxes. If the king looks after the spiritual interests of the citizens, he can levy taxes without difficulties. In this way, both the subjects and the king will be happy during this life, and in the next life, the king will be able to share 1/6 of the pious activities of the citizens. Otherwise, by levying taxes on the sinful citizens, he will have to share the reactions of their sinful activities. This same principle can be applied to parents and spiritual masters as well. If parents simply give birth to children like cats and dogs, but cannot save their children from imminent death, they become responsible for the activities of their animalistic children. Lately, such children are turning into hippies. Similarly, if a spiritual master cannot direct his disciples to become free of sinful activities, he becomes responsible for their sinful acts. These subtle laws of nature are unknown to the present leaders of society. Since the leaders of society have a poor fund of knowledge, and the citizens in general are rogues and thieves, there cannot be an auspicious situation for human society. At the present moment, the whole world is full of such an incompatible combination of state and citizens. And therefore there is constant tension, war, and anxiety as an inevitable result of such social conditions. Reading the translation again. To give protection to the general mass of people who are citizens of the state is the prescribed occupational duty of a king. By acting in that way, the king, in his next life, shares 1/6 of the result of the pious activities of the citizen. But a king or executive head of state who simply collects taxes from the citizens but does not give them proper protection as human beings has the results of his own pious activities taken away by the citizens. And in exchange for his not giving protection, he becomes liable to punishment for the impious activities of his subjects. So we are hearing instructions that are directly being given by Lord Vishnu to Prithu Maharaj. Very basic, fundamental, and essential point being made here, that the primary duty or responsibility of a leader is to facilitate or help one's dependents become God conscious, become Krishna conscious. The same message we find in the pastime of King Rishabhadev. King Rishabhadev, while instructing his 100 sons, the eldest being Bharat, who became Bharat Maharaj, gave the same instruction. Guru na sasyat, pita na sasyat. One should not become a guru. One should not become a father. One should not become a leader in society unless one can deliver one's dependence from the clutches of Maya. So in other words, to become a leader, and there are different, Prabhupada extends leader here at the end of the purport, this same principle applies to parents and to spiritual masters. Anyone who has dependence. That is why in the Vedic culture so much of emphasis is given on training good leaders. Actually, the whole Gurukul is meant for training 3 kinds of leaders. 3 types of natural leaders. The Brahmana is a leader, the Kshatriya also a leader, and the Vaishya is a leader. Why is a Vaishya leader? Because he is directing the activities of so many people. So this is a very fundamental aspect that we find in the Vedic culture, that it is not only the responsibility of brahmanas, who are considered, of course, the spiritual guides of society. It's not only their responsibility to help people in general advance in Krishna consciousness, but it's also the responsibility of kings. And that is why we see in the Bhagavad Gita, evam parampara praptam imam rajar sayo vidu. Krishna is explaining that this knowledge that I am revealing or speaking to you, O Arjuna, this says, since time immemorial, this knowledge is being shared or given to Rajarishis. So this point is being made here also, that when a king is responsible by having properly been trained and helping, guiding the citizens to become God conscious, then all of their pious activities that they perform, due to his being diligent, due to his carrying and arranging. For example, kings, they used to arrange for temples to be built. They used to arrange for goshalas. They used to arrange for irrigation, water irrigation. They would facilitate the the citizens in many ways, so that they would not be burdened physically and they would more easily be practicing spiritual life. So here it is being mentioned that such citizens, the king receives 1/6 of their pious activities. But the opposite happens when a king or a leader does not give proper protection or guidance. Then the citizens who are therefore engaged in sinful activities, and the reaction comes to the king. He has to accept 1/6 of those sinful reactions. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada was very conscious. He's the one who is writing these purports and explaining how the whole of society becomes very chaotic, very disturbed when we don't have such kind of rulers within society. So Srila Prabhupada many times explained this point, that it is one of the important responsibilities of the Krishna consciousness movement to actually train individuals to acquire the various qualities needed. That's why it takes many years of training, as we see in the traditional Gurukula. And unless we establish Gurukula, then we cannot get these kinds of qualified kings. So this word, Sanskrit word, is used here, palanam. What is palanam? Our Sanskrit scholar here. Palanam means? Palanam. It's in the book there, first line. Palanam, to rule, to protect. We were mentioning how protection, administration, and welfare. So these are the two responsibilities for a king. He has to see to the material well-being of the citizens, and simultaneously he has to look after the spiritual well-being. Nowadays, there is no discussion and no arrangement for the spiritual well-being. It is not a topic that can be discussed in Parliament, because of being what they call secular state. So this is the defect of modern day government. They have become disconnected actually with what is meant to be the real goal and purpose of life, and simply promoting what is called economic development. So this point is being emphasized here. And again, Prabhupada, although he does not mention the word Varnasrama, but it is understood whenever Prabhupada speaks about Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras. Prabhupada is telling that all of the members of society, every single individual, it's not only the Brahmanas, the Shudras included, when they are properly guided, when they properly execute their duties, they also can become liberated. Everyone. Shudra can become pure devotee simply by taking up the process of Krishna consciousness. Generally we think Shudra as someone who is like useless or worthless. But every member of society who takes up the practices that are recommended, which begin with the 4 basic qualities to be developed, what Srila Prabhupada has explained as the 4 pillars of dharma. Anyone who takes up and develops these qualities of satyam, daya, tapasocham, truthfulness, compassion, discipline, austerity, and cleanliness, can actually be elevated. Guna and karma. Guna means rising above. Somebody's there? Guna generally refers to the 3 modes of material nature. But guna also, guna means the quality of consciousness. Either our consciousness is in a lower level, means tamagun, ignorance, or either it is in a higher state, means sattvagun, mode of goodness. But when we take to spiritual life, then we can rise above the ordinary state of goodness and become transcendentally situated, pure goodness. So even someone who is having the occupation of Shudra, activities of Shudra, by proper association and application, his consciousness can become transformed. So that is why Krishna consciousness movement gives one that opportunity for everyone to actually be elevated beyond these modes of material nature. So any comments on this? Or questions?
One question.
Yes.
How we can surpass the all? You told that we can surpass all the gunas. If one is situated in tamoguna, rajoguna, or satoguna, then how we can surpass these gunas? Actually, that is our nature from birth, or from that is our nature. In that we are situated.
Okay, so your question is how we can surpass the gunas, because that is our nature from birth. We are, due to previous activities, we are infected or affected by either tamagun or rajagun or satagun. Yes. When we come in contact with spiritual life, if we don't come in contact with spiritual life, we will remain connected with the gunas. But when we come in contact with spiritual life, we come to know what is our original nature. Our original nature is spiritual, with no connection with the gunas, with no connection with the modes of material nature. So therefore, simply by taking up the process, by applying the process, spiritual process, then that is what is nicely explained in the Bhagavad Gita. We have a choice of remaining under the external energy, the Mohini Prakriti. So this is one of the important principles we learn in spiritual life. We come to know about the different energies that are working. The primary the main energy in the material world that is affecting the vast majority of people is this Bahiranga Shakti, Mohini Prakriti, means Maya. But if one is fortunate to come in contact with Bhagavad Gita, with Vaishnavas, he comes to know that there's something else beside Maya. There is the Daivi Prakriti, the internal energy, Daivi Prakriti, which is Bhakti. And when one takes up activities connected with Daivi Prakriti, slowly, gradually, one rises above and transcends these gunas. Otherwise, it's impossible. It is impossible to defeat. Even we see for devotees how difficult it is. Even those who are cultivating this knowledge find it difficult, isn't it? We're all sitting here, devoted. We know, even though we are practicing Krishna consciousness, Maya is so powerful. What to speak of somebody who's not practicing? If somebody is not practicing, actually has no hope. Actually, that is the unfortunate condition of those who have no knowledge of Krishna consciousness. They're completely under the gunas, under the modes of material nature. Their only hope is actually to come in contact. That is why those who are Vaishnavas, are acharyas, they always are cultivating this mood of how to deliver those conditioned souls who have no information, no knowledge about this. So that means that we as devotees who have knowledge, then if we properly apply that knowledge, that's all nicely explained in the Nectar Devotion, that's explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The beginning process, as we know, is by what we're doing now, by hearing from the Bhagavatam. Srinvatam Swagata Krishna Punya Sravana Kirtana Ridyanta Stoya Badrani Vidunoti Surit Satam. All of the dirty things within the heart, all of the abhadras accumulated since time immemorial, will gradually be cleansed. And as the more they become cleansed, then the more we rise above. At least in the beginning stage, we, by following these basic principles, we become situated in the mode of goodness. And it is only when we firmly become situated in the mode of goodness, evam prasanamanaso, when the mind becomes peaceful. If our mind is not peaceful, it means we're not situated in the mode of goodness yet. It's very simple to understand. One of the important symptoms of one being situated in the mode of goodness is that he's peaceful. When he goes to bed at night, he can sleep easily and has a nice rest. If one is not in the mode of goodness, then he has a hard time to sleep. And like this, various symptoms. So, one has to take up the process nicely, and then gradually. Bhagavad Gita also explains, the more one cultivates this Rajavidya. Rajavidya means this science of Krishna consciousness, then one becomes very peaceful and becomes very happy in executing all kinds of activities, knowing that these are actually meant for the Lord. And in other words, one becomes more and more reinstated, resituated in his original nature. That is the first thing we learn when we come in contact with Krishna consciousness. What is our original nature? Our original nature is that we are Satchitananda Vigraha. Yeah, we are the Amsha, part and parcel of Krishna. Correct. Yeah. But the condition for the living entity, especially in Kali Yuga, is to forget. So we need to constantly remind ourselves by keeping the good association of devotees, by attending Bhagavatam class, by hearing, not only sitting in class, but by hearing attentively what is being explained in these various verses and instructions. And slowly, gradually, one becomes less and less affected by these gunas. And of course, now our time is gone. Yeah. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai Srila Prabhupada.